My son-in-law told me to play ball or get out of my own house. That single demand ended up costing him his marriage, his freedom, and a $2 million inheritance. I didn't scream. I didn't throw a punch. I just walked out the door and let the silence do the heavy lifting. What happened next is a story about the catastrophe that follows when you mistake a father's kindness for a fool's weakness. Before I reveal how I dismantled his entire life without lifting a finger, let me know where you're watching from in the comments, and please like if you believe respect is non-negotiable. The brass key turned in the heavy oak door with that solid familiar click I had heard for 40 years. My wrists were aching from the plastic handles of the grocery bags, which were heavy with the specific brands of cereal and organic milk my daughter, Kendra, insisted on. I pushed the door open, expecting the quiet hum of the afternoon, or maybe the smell of the pot roast I planned to cook. But instead, I was met with the blaring noise of a televised basketball game. Marcus was sprawled in my vintage leather recliner, the one Eleanor had saved up for 3 months to buy me for my 60th birthday. His large feet clad in dirty white socks were propped up on the mahogany coffee table, leaving heel marks on the wood I polished every Sunday. A half-empty bottle of beer dangled from his fingers, and he did not even turn his head when I kicked the door shut behind me. "You are up, Isaiah. Grab me another brew from the fridge while you are walking past." He spoke to me without looking away from the screen, his voice flat and expectant like he was ordering a waiter at a dive bar. I stood there for a moment, letting the grocery bags slide from my fingers to the floor. The glass jars inside clinked together with a dangerous sound. My chest tightened. I had just spent 2 hours navigating the crowded aisles of Whole Foods, spending my pension money on food for a household that barely acknowledged my existence. "Excuse me," I said, keeping my voice low and controlled. "You heard me," Marcus said, and finally he turned his head. His eyes were glazed and heavy. "Not that cheap domestic stuff you drink. Get me one of the imported ones Kendra bought yesterday." Something cold settled in my stomach. I bought those beers. I bought the fridge they were cooling in. I bought the house that fridge sat inside. "Marcus, I just walked in the door," I said. "My hands are sore and I'm 72 years old. You can get your own beer." He sighed loudly, a dramatic exhale of frustration that made him sound like a teenager dealing with a slow parent. He swung his legs off the coffee table and stood up. At 6'3", he towered over me. He used his size like a threat, a subtle reminder of physical dominance that he had been deploying more and more lately. "Look, Isaiah," he said, stepping into my personal space. "We can do this the easy way or the hard way. You want to keep living here comfortably. You need to learn how to play ball." "Play ball," I repeated, my voice steady even though my heart was hammering against my ribs. "Yeah, play ball. This is our house now, effectively. Kendra and I run things here. We let you stay because you are family, but that does not mean you get to have an attitude. When I ask for a beer, you get a beer. It is a simple exchange for the roof over your head." The sheer audacity of the statement left me momentarily speechless. The roof over my head. The roof I had replaced 5 years ago with a check from my retirement savings. The kitchen door swung open, and Kendra walked in, drying her hands on a dish towel. She looked from Marcus to me, sensing the tension immediately. Her eyes darted to the grocery bags on the floor, then to Marcus's aggressive stance. "What is going on?" she asked, but her tone was not protective of me. It was annoyed. "Your father is being difficult," Marcus said, crossing his thick arms. "I asked for a favor and he is making it into a federal case. He thinks he runs the place." Kendra sighed and looked at me with deep disappointment. "Dad, honestly, just get him the beer. Is it really worth a fight?" I looked at my daughter. I searched her face for the little girl who used to sit on my lap while I read her bedtime stories. But I only saw a tired stranger who had learned to capitulate to a bully to keep the peace. "It is my house, Kendra," I said softly. "Not anymore," Marcus interrupted, his voice rising. "You signed the deed over to the trust, remember? That means we are in charge. Now you have a choice, old man. You can either contribute and do what you are told, or you can pack your bags and get out. We do not need this negative energy in our home." The silence that followed was thick enough to choke on. I looked at Kendra, waiting for her to defend me, waiting for her to tell her husband that he could not speak to her father that way, that he could not threaten to evict the man who paid for the very floor he was standing on. She looked down at the floor, avoiding my gaze. "Dad, maybe it is better if you just listen to him," she whispered. "We are all stressed. Just please do not make this harder than it has to be. That was the moment, the exact second the tether snapped. All right, I said. Marcus smirked, thinking he had won, thinking I was submitting. Good. Now about that beer. I am going to pack, I said. The smirk fell from his face. Kendra looked up, her mouth opening in shock. I walked past them, leaving the expensive groceries sitting on the rug. I walked down the hallway to the master bedroom, the room I had shared with Eleanor for 30 years until she passed. I opened the closet and pulled down the old Samsonite suitcase from the top shelf. It was dusty. We had not used it since our trip to the Grand Canyon a decade ago. I did not pack everything. I did not strip the room. I moved with the precision of a man closing a ledger. 3 suits, my shirts, underwear and socks, my toiletries, and most importantly the silver-framed photograph of Eleanor from the nightstand. I wrapped it carefully in a soft sweater and placed it in the center of the case. I could hear them whispering in the living room. Urgent, hissed conversations. Marcus sounded angry but uncertain. Kendra sounded frightened. They were realizing that the old man was not bluffing. I walked to the small safe in the corner of the closet and spun the dial. I took out my passport, my birth certificate, and the black leather portfolio that contained the deed, the trust documents, and the banking access codes. I slipped the portfolio into my laptop bag. When I wheeled the suitcase back down the hallway, they were waiting. Marcus had sat back down, but he was not watching TV anymore. He was watching me. Kendra was standing by the door, wringing her hands. "Dad, where are you going?" she asked, her voice trembling. "You gave me a choice," I said, stopping at the door. "I made one. You cannot just leave," Marcus barked, but there was fear in his eyes now. "Who is going to cook dinner? Who is going to handle the bills?" "You are the man of the house, Marcus," I said, opening the door. "I am sure you will figure it out." I walked out into the cool spring air. I did not look back at the brownstone. I did not look back at the bay window, where I knew they were watching. I loaded the suitcase into the trunk of my sedan, my reliable silver Toyota that I had kept in pristine condition. I started the engine and backed out of the driveway. As I drove down the street, leaving the neighborhood where I had raised my family, I felt a strange sensation. It was not sadness. It was the cold clarity of a balance sheet finally being corrected. I drove for 20 minutes until I reached the Blue Horizon Motel on the outskirts of the city. It was not a nice place. The neon sign flickered and the paint was peeling, but it was clean enough. I paid for a week in advance with cash. The room smelled of lemon polish and stale cigarettes. I set my suitcase on the rack and sat on the edge of the stiff mattress. The silence in the room was absolute. I took my phone out of my pocket. It was already buzzing with text messages from Kendra, but I did not look at them. I placed the phone face down on the nightstand. Then I opened my laptop and connected to the motel's spotty wireless internet. I navigated to the First Republic Bank website and logged in. The screen populated with numbers, balances, accounts, automatic transfers. It was Sunday evening. The banks were closed, but the internet never slept. I stared at the numbers representing 40 years of hard work. The mortgage payment was scheduled for tomorrow. The car notes for the 2 SUVs in my driveway were scheduled for Tuesday. The credit card payments for Kendra's shopping sprees were set for Wednesday. I cracked my knuckles. I had spent a lifetime building this wealth to protect them. Now I would use it to teach them. Monday morning arrived, with a gray and unforgiving light that filtered through the thin polyester curtains of room 112. I had slept in bursts, waking every hour to the sound of trucks rumbling past on the highway and the unfamiliar hum of the motel refrigerator. My back was stiff from the mattress that was more springs than foam, but my mind was sharper than it had been in years. I rose at 6 o'clock and showered in the lukewarm water, scrubbing the night away with a bar of waxy soap. I dressed in my charcoal suit, the one I used to wear to board meetings. It felt like armor. Today I was not a father, or a grandfather, or a retiree. Today I was a liquidator closing down a failed subsidiary. I pulled the small round table to the center of the room and arranged my workspace. My laptop sat open in the middle, flanked by a yellow legal pad and my gold fountain pen. I logged into my primary banking portal, and the screen filled with the soft blue glow that represented my life's work. The first item on the ledger was the house, that beautiful Chicago brownstone on the near north side. I had bought it in '82 and paid it off in '99, but I had taken out a small line of credit to renovate the kitchen for Kendra 3 years ago. Plus there were the property taxes and the homeowners association fees that I paid automatically every month. I looked at the scheduled transfer set for this very morning. $1,200. It was the monthly cost of their comfort. It covered the association fees, the insurance, and the interest on the renovation loan. I remembered signing the paperwork for that kitchen, watching Kendra run her hands over the marble countertops, her eyes bright with excitement. She had hugged me then, a hug that felt real. I clicked the tab marked Recurring Transfers. The mouse cursor hovered over the button labeled Cancel. My finger hesitated for a fraction of a second. This was the nuclear option. Once I did this, the letters would start coming. The notices, the warnings, the comfort would turn into pressure. I thought about Marcus's feet on my table. I thought about the way he looked at me like I was a piece of furniture that had outlived its usefulness. I clicked the mouse. The screen refreshed. Transfer canceled. Next were the vehicles. I navigated to the auto loan section. 2 years ago, Marcus had insisted he needed a luxury SUV for his image. He was trying to get into real estate, he said, and clients judged you by what you drove. I had co-signed the note and set up the payments from my account because his credit score was in the low 500s, $600 a month for a car I was never allowed to drive, $600 for leather seats that had never felt my weight. I dialed the number on the back of my debit card to reach the loan department. The automated voice was cheerful and robotic. "Please say the reason for your call." "Stop payment," I said clearly. I waited through the hold music, listening to a jazz saxophone loop that sounded tinny through the phone speaker. Finally, a representative came on the line. "Good morning, Mr. Vance. How can I help you today?" "I need to stop the automatic draft for the Range Rover account ending in 442, I said. "I see, sir. That payment is scheduled to process tomorrow. Are you sure you want to stop it? This may result in late fees if an alternative payment method is not provided." "I am sure," I said. "The borrower will be responsible for the payments moving forward." "Very well. I have removed your account as the funding source. Is there anything else?" "Yes. The Lexus account ending in 891. Cancel that one too." "Done, sir." I hung up the phone and made a note on my yellow pad. $1,200 a month in car notes gone. The silence in the motel room felt heavier now, but it was a clean silence. I turned back to the laptop for the most painful part. The credit cards. Kendra was an authorized user on my Platinum American Express. I had given her the card for emergencies for the baby, for things she truly needed. But over the last year, the definition of need had expanded to include designer handbags, spa weekends, and dinners at steakhouses where I was not invited. I pulled up the statement. Last month alone, she had spent $3,000. There was a charge for a boutique in the Gold Coast for $400 made on the same day she told me they could not afford to buy groceries, which is why I had gone shopping yesterday. The lie stung worse than the money. She had looked me in the eye and pleaded poverty while carrying a $400 receipt in her purse. I went to the card services menu. Manage authorized users. Kendra King. I selected the option, Remove User. A warning box popped up. Removing this user will decline any future transactions and cancel their physical card. Do you wish to proceed? I thought about the Christmas dinners I had paid for, the vacations I had funded. I thought about the way she stood silently while her husband told me to get out of my own house. I clicked, yes. In less than 45 minutes, I had severed financial arteries that had been pumping my lifeblood into their household for 5 years. The total monthly savings tallied on my legal pad came to over $5,000. That was $5,000 of my pension, of my savings that would stay in my account this month. I sat back in the hard wooden chair and exhaled a long breath. My heart was beating a slow, steady rhythm. I expected to feel guilt. I had spent my entire life as a provider. My identity was wrapped up in being the man who took care of things, the man who wrote the checks, the man who solved the problems. But I did not feel guilt. I felt a strange, hollow lightness. It was the feeling of a heavy pack being dropped from weary shoulders. My phone, which I had left face down on the bed, buzzed. Then it buzzed again. A notification popped up on the laptop screen for my email. Payment failure notification, Range Rover Financial. It had begun. The automated systems were faster than I thought. The invisible machinery of the financial world was already grinding gears, shifting the weight of responsibility from my back to theirs. I closed the laptop and stood up. I walked to the window and pulled back the curtain, looking out at the parking lot. A maid was pushing a cart full of towels. A truck driver was checking his tires. Life was moving on, indifferent to the domestic earthquake I had just triggered. I needed coffee. I needed to sit in a diner, read a newspaper, and feel like a normal person. I grabbed my room key and my wallet. As I walked out the door, I checked my phone one last time. 4 missed calls from Kendra, 2 from Marcus, and a text message from Kendra that simply said, "Dad, the card got declined at the gas station. Call me as soon as possible." I slid the phone into my pocket and turned off the ringer. The lesson had officially started, and the first rule of this new curriculum was that silence was the loudest answer I could give. I locked the motel door and walked toward my car, my steps echoing on the concrete, feeling the morning sun finally beginning to burn through the gray clouds. The week passed with a strange and quiet rhythm that I had not known for years. I fell into a routine at the blue horizon that felt almost monastic. I woke up early to watch the sunrise over the highway, and I spent my days reading paperback novels from the used bookstore down the street. I ate my meals at the corner diner, where the waitress named Betty poured my coffee without asking and never demanded anything from me other than a polite smile. My phone, however, told a different story. It sat on the laminated bedside table, accumulating missed calls and voicemails like a trash can filling up with refuse. I did not answer a single one. I had decided on Sunday night that I would not engage in a debate. There was nothing to debate. I had simply stopped doing what I was never required to do in the first place. But I did listen to the messages. I listened to them in the evenings with a glass of cheap motel wine in my hand, analyzing the progression of their emotions like a scientist studying a collapsing star. The messages from Tuesday were full of confusion and that specific brand of arrogance Marcus wore like a cheap cologne. "Yo, Isaiah." It was Marcus's voice, casually annoyed. "I am at the gas station and the card is acting up. Says unauthorized user or something. Call the bank and fix it, man. I'm sitting here looking stupid in front of the pump. Call me back." He sounded so sure that it was a mistake. A clerical error. The idea that I would cut him off had not even entered his imagination. By Wednesday, the tone had shifted. The confusion was gone, replaced by a sharp, biting anger. The automated decline notices must have started hitting their inboxes. "Isaiah, pick up the phone. This is Marcus again. The dealership just called me. They said the payment bounced. Do you know how embarrassing that is? I have a reputation at that place. You need to handle this right now before it messes up my credit. You are being childish." Thursday brought the panic. It was Kendra this time. Her voice was high and tight the way it got when she was a teenager and crashed her first car. "Dad, please pick up. The mortgage company sent an email. They said the auto draft was canceled. Is this because of Sunday? Are you really doing this? We do not have that kind of money sitting in checking, Dad. You know that. Please call me. I am scared." I listened to her fear and I felt a twinge of the old instinct, the urge to rush in and fix it to smooth the road and pay the toll. But then I remembered the way she had looked at the floor while her husband threw me out. I remembered that she was 28 years old. I poured another glass of wine and deleted the message. Friday was radio silence. No calls, no texts. It was the eye of the storm. They were likely scrambling, trying to move money around, realizing that the safety net they had been bouncing on for years had been removed. Saturday morning brought the rain, and it brought them. I was sitting in the armchair by the window, watching the water streak down the glass when I heard the tires crunch on the gravel outside. I saw my silver Toyota first reflected in the wet pavement, and then I saw the white Range Rover pull up right next to it. It looked out of place in the motel, lot like a thoroughbred horse in a donkey stable. Marcus got out first. He slammed the door hard enough to shake the rain off the roof. He was wearing a tracksuit and looking disheveled, his usual polished exterior cracking under the pressure. Kendra followed him, huddled under an umbrella, looking small and pale. They banged on the door. It was not a polite knock. It was the pounding of people who felt they were owed entry. "Isaiah, open up. We saw your car. We know you are in there." I stood up slowly and smoothed the front of my cardigan. I walked to the door, but I did not unlock it immediately. I peered through the peephole. Marcus's face was distorted by the fisheye lens, red and sweaty. "Open the door, old man." I undid the deadbolt, but I kept the chain lock firmly in its slide. I cracked the door 3 inches. The smell of rain and ozone drifted in, mixing with the stale air of the room. Marcus pushed his face into the gap. His eyes were wild. "What the hell is wrong with you, Isaiah? Do you have dementia? Is that it? You almost got my truck repossessed." I looked at him calmly through the narrow opening. I did not shout. I did not step back. "Hello, Marcus. Hello, Kendra. Dad, let us in." Kendra pushed forward, tears mixing with the rain on her face. "It is freezing out here. We need to talk." "We are talking," I said. "You canceled everything," Marcus shouted, and a few doors down a truck driver stepped out to see what the commotion was. "You canceled the mortgage. You canceled the cards. Who does that to family?" I looked him dead in the eye. "The landlord does that to tenants who do not pay rent. The bank does that to borrowers who default. I am neither your landlord nor your bank, Marcus. I was just a generous old man that you pushed too far." "You cannot do this," Marcus sputtered. "That is our house. It is in my name," I said. "The deed is in my trust. You were guests, and guests who insult the host get evicted. Dad, please." Kendra was sobbing, now gripping the doorframe. "We do not have the money for the mortgage. We do not have the money for the cars. We will lose everything." "Then you should have thought about that before you told me to get out," I said gently. "You wanted to be independent. You wanted to run the house your way. This is what independence costs, Kendra. It costs money." Marcus slammed his hand against the door, making the chain rattle against the wood. "Listen to me, you old fool. You are going to fix this. You are going to call the bank right now and tell them it was a mistake, or I swear to God I will." "You will what?" I interrupted, my voice turning to steel. "You will hit me. You will beat up a 72-year-old man in a motel parking lot while witnesses watch. Go ahead, Marcus." I nodded toward the truck driver, who was now leaning against the railing watching us with his arms crossed. Marcus looked at the truck driver, then back at me. He realized he had no power here. He could not bully me with size, and he could not bully me with guilt. "Get out of my doorway," I said. "Dad, wait," Kendra cried. "Go home, Kendra. Go home and look at your husband and ask yourself if this is the life you want, because I'm not paying for it anymore." I closed the door firmly. I heard Marcus shout something obscene, but I slid the deadbolt home with a loud final click. I waited by the door, listening to them argue in the rain. I heard Kendra crying and Marcus swearing, and then finally the car doors slamming. I watched through the window as the Range Rover backed out, kicking up gravel, and sped away onto the highway. My hands were shaking slightly, not from fear but from the adrenaline of finally standing my ground. I sat back down in the armchair and picked up my book, but the words swam on the page. I knew this was not over. Marcus was not the type to accept defeat. He was the type to double down. I needed to know more about what I was dealing with. I picked up my phone. It was time to stop reacting and start investigating. I scrolled through my contacts until I found the number for Darius Cole. He was the branch manager at First Republic, a man I had hired 20 years ago and mentored until he took my job when I retired. If anyone could tell me exactly what kind of financial mess Marcus was hiding, it was Darius. I pressed the call button and held the phone to my ear, listening to the ring and watching the rain wash away the tire tracks they had left in the gravel. Tuesday morning found me sitting in a booth at the Sapphire Diner, a place with checkerboard floors and vinyl seats that had not changed since the 90s. It was a sharp contrast to the silent anonymity of the Blue Horizon Motel. Here the air smelled of bacon grease and brewing coffee, and the noise was a comforting blanket of clattering silverware and low conversation. I checked my watch. Darius Cole was never late. He was a man who lived by the clock, a trait I had instilled in him during the 15 years we worked side by side at First Republic. Sure enough, at 8 o'clock sharp, the bell above the door chimed and Darius walked in. He looked impeccable in a navy pinstripe suit, the kind that cost more than my car. He scanned the room, spotted me in the back corner, and made his way over. But his walk was different today. Usually Darius moved with the easy confidence of a man who managed millions of dollars. Today his steps were heavy, and his face carried a gravity that made my stomach turn over. "Isaiah," he said, sliding into the booth opposite me. He did not smile. He did not offer the usual handshake or the joke about my retirement hobbies. "Good to see you, Darius," I said, trying to keep my voice light. "I appreciate you meeting me on such short notice." He nodded to the waitress, signaling for coffee but waving away the menu. He placed a thick manila envelope on the table between us. It sat there like a loaded gun. "I saw the activity on your accounts yesterday, Isaiah," Darius said quietly. "You stopped the mortgage payments. You cut off the credit cards. I assumed something happened." I nodded, taking a sip of my water. "I finally realized that funding their lifestyle was not helping them, Darius. It was crippling them. I had to cut the cord. Darius looked down at his hands, then back at me. His eyes were full of a strange mixture of pity and professional concern. "If this was just about you cutting them off, I would have congratulated you over the phone," he said. "I would have told you it was about time. But it is not just about the allowance, Isaiah. You need to see this." He pushed the manila envelope across the formica table. The sound of the paper sliding against the surface seemed incredibly loud in the busy diner. I opened the clasp and pulled out a stack of documents. The top page was a loan application. Standard Form 1003, Residential Loan Application. I scanned the header. The property address was my brownstone. The applicant was Marcus King. The amount requested was $50,000. I frowned, looking up at Darius. "What is this? Marcus does not own the house. He cannot take out a loan on it." "Keep reading," Darius said, his voice tight. "Look at the co-applicant section, and look at the signature page." I turned the page. My breath caught in my throat. There in the co-applicant field was my name, Isaiah Vance, and at the bottom of the page was my signature. It was a good forgery. A very good one. It had the same sharp loop on the V that I had used for 40 years. It had the same slant. If I had not known with absolute certainty that I had never seen this document before, I might have believed I signed it. "He came into the branch 2 months ago," Darius said softly. "He sat in my office, Isaiah. He told me you two were planning to renovate the basement to make a playroom for the grandkids. He said you were feeling under the weather and could not make it in personally, but you had signed the papers at home." I felt a cold numbness spreading through my chest. It was not the heat of anger. It was the chill of absolute betrayal. "He tried to mortgage my house," I whispered. "Behind my back. He brought a notary stamp too," Darius continued. "It looked official. But you know I check everything. It is what you taught me. I ran the notary's commission number. It was expired. It belonged to a woman who died 3 years ago." I stared at the signature. The loop on the V. The careful slant. He must have practiced. He must have sat at my dining room table tracing my signature from old birthday cards or checks while I was sleeping in the next room. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked, looking up at him. Darius sighed and ran a hand over his shaved head. "I wanted to, Isaiah. God knows I wanted to. But I denied the loan immediately. I flagged it as an application error to save you the embarrassment. I thought maybe you knew about it and were just letting him handle business poorly. I did not want to be the one to tell you that your son-in-law is a felon." He leaned forward, lowering his voice. "But when I saw you cancel those payments yesterday, I knew the gloves were off. You are not protecting him anymore. So you need to know exactly what you are dealing with. This is not just an ungrateful kid, Isaiah. This is fraud. This is bank fraud." I closed the folder and placed my hand on top of it. The paper felt cool under my palm. $50,000, I said. "He told me he needed money for home improvements, but he never mentioned a loan. He just complained about how tight money was." Darius looked around the diner to make sure no one was listening. "People do not commit federal crimes for home improvements, Isaiah," he said. "They do not risk 5 years in prison to put in new drywall. You forge a signature when you are desperate, when you need cash fast and you have no other way to get it." "Desperate," I repeated. The word hung in the air. I thought about the beer bottle in Marcus's hand. I thought about the ultimatum. Obey or get out. It wasn't about power. It was about control. He needed me in that house because he needed access to the equity. He needed me compliant so he could keep trying to drain the accounts. "There is something else," Darius said. "I made a few calls. Off the record. Marcus has been spending a lot of time at that place out on the highway. The Glacier Peaks Casino." The pieces slammed together in my mind with the force of a car crash. The late nights. The mood swings. The sudden aggressive demand for secrecy. The luxury SUV he insisted on driving, which was perfect for the hour-long drive to the casino. "He is gambling," I said. Darius nodded grimly. "I cannot see his other accounts, obviously, but based on a $50,000 desperation loan, I would guess he is in deep." I sat back in the booth. The noise of the diner faded into a dull roar. My son-in-law was not just a bully, he was an addict, and he had been cannibalizing my life to feed his habit. "What do I do, Darius?" I asked. Darius pointed at the folder. "That is evidence, Isaiah. You take that and you go see your friend at the precinct, Andre Hill, because if Marcus was willing to forge your name on a bank document, he is willing to do worse." A man who is cornered by debt is dangerous. I picked up the envelope. It felt heavier now. It contained the death of my family as I knew it. The Marcus I thought I knew was gone, replaced by a stranger who would steal my name and my home to save himself. "Thank you, Darius," I said, standing up. I reached for my wallet to pay for the coffee. Darius put his hand on my arm. "It is on the house, Isaiah. Just watch your back. He is going to panic when he realizes the well is dry. And panic makes people do crazy things." I walked out of the diner into the bright morning sun. The envelope was tucked under my arm, pressed tight against my ribs. I had gone into the diner looking for clarity, and I had found it. But it was a brutal, ugly clarity. I walked to my car and placed the folder on the passenger seat. I looked at it for a long moment. Then I pulled out my phone and dialed a number I had not called in years. "Andre Hill." A voice answered, gruff and familiar. "Andre, it is Isaiah Vance," I said. "I need to see you. I have something you need to look at." I started the engine. The time for sadness was over. Now it was time for the law. The Chicago precinct smelled exactly the way I remembered from the days when I used to consult on financial crimes. It was a mixture of floor wax, stale coffee, and the damp wool of cheap suits. I walked past the front desk where a young officer looked tired behind thick glass, and made my way to the elevators. Detective Andre Hill worked on the third floor in a corner office that was more file cabinet than room. We had grown up on the same block on the south side. We had played stickball in the street and studied in the same library. While I had gone into the quiet precision of finance, Andre had chosen the chaotic world of law enforcement. He was a large man with gray stubble on his chin and eyes that had seen every lie a human being could tell. "Isaiah," he said without standing up. He gestured to the metal chair opposite his desk. "You look like you just walked out of a funeral." I sat down and placed the manila folder on the scarred wooden desk. It felt vibrating with the secrets it held. "Not a funeral, Andre," I said. "Just an audit." Andre leaned forward, his leather chair creaking under his weight. He looked at the folder, then at me. "You do not come to my office to catch up on old times. What is in the bag?" I pushed the folder toward him. "Darius Cole gave me this an hour ago. It is a loan application for $50,000 against my property." Andre opened the folder. He put on his reading glasses and scanned the document in silence. His face remained impassive, a mask of professional detachment that he had perfected over 30 years. He stopped at the signature page. "This is your name," he said. "But the ink looks a little shaky on the loop." "I did not sign it," I said. Andre closed the folder slowly. "Marcus," I nodded. "Marcus." Andre took off his glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose. He did not look surprised. In his line of work, betrayal was just another Tuesday. "I need to know what I am dealing with, Andre. A man does not risk a felony charge for home renovations. Darius thinks it is gambling." He mentioned Glacier Peaks. Andre's eyes sharpened. "Glacier Peaks. That is a rough spot, Isaiah. It is technically a tribal casino, but the loan sharks circle that place like vultures waiting for the losers to stumble out into the parking lot." "Can you check?" I asked. "Can you find out how deep he is?" Andre looked at me for a long moment. Then he reached for his phone. "I have a contact in Vice. He tracks the bookies who operate out of there. Give me 5 minutes." He swiveled his chair away from me and spoke in low tones into the receiver. I sat there staring at the peeling paint on the wall. I tried to picture Marcus not as the arrogant bully in my living room, but as a desperate addict, sweating at a poker table, watching his chips disappear. It explained everything. The mood swings, the sudden affection followed by cold withdrawals. The way he would disappear for hours on Saturday nights, claiming he was working late. I had been funding a sinking ship. Every time I bought groceries so they could save money, I was just buying him another stack of chips. Every time I paid the mortgage, I was freeing up his salary to be thrown away on a bad hand. Andre hung up the phone and turned back to me. The look on his face made my blood run cold. "You need to listen to me carefully, Isaiah," he said. "How much?" I asked. "It is not just about the amount," Andre said, leaning forward. "It is about who he owes. Marcus has been running a tab with a bookie named Sal. This is not a bank. They do not send late notices. They send guys with baseball bats." "How much, Andre?" $25,000, Andre said flatly. "That is the principal. With the vigorish the interest they charge on the street, it is probably closer to 35 by now. And he has missed his last 3 payments." I closed my eyes. $35,000. That was why he needed the home equity loan. He was trying to pay them off before they hurt him. The timeline matches, Andre said, tapping the folder. He tried to get the loan 2 months ago. That was right when Sal started tightening the screws. When the bank denied the loan, Marcus probably started panicking. That is why he has been so aggressive with you. He is cornered, Isaiah. A cornered rat will bite anything that gets close, even the hand that feeds it. He is dangerous, I whispered. He is desperate, Andre corrected. And desperate men are dangerous by default. He is living in your house with your daughter, and he has criminal elements looking for him. If they come to collect and he is not there, they might not care who opens the door. The thought of Kendra opening the door to a debt collector with a baseball bat made me feel physically ill. I gripped the arms of the metal chair. What do I do? First you get him out of that house, Andre said, his voice hard. Which I assume you already did since you are sleeping at the Blue Horizon. I nodded. I left on Sunday. Good. But you need to protect yourself legally. This forgery, he tapped the folder again. This is leverage. It is a Class 3 felony. Forgery and attempted bank fraud. We can arrest him today if you want. I hesitated. I thought about Kendra. I thought about the shame of seeing her husband in handcuffs. I thought about the baby she had mentioned once or twice as a future possibility. Not yet, I said. I want to handle this my way first. I want him to have a chance to come clean to Kendra. If I arrest him now, she will blame me. She will say I ruined her life. She needs to see who he really is. Andre shook his head. You are playing a dangerous game, Isaiah. This guy is not going to come clean. He is going to double down. That is what addicts do. They lie until the truth is the only thing left standing. I know, I said, standing up, but I need to give her that chance. Andre stood up too. He reached into his drawer and pulled out a card. He wrote a number on the back in thick black marker. This is my personal cell, he said, handing it to me. You keep this in your pocket. If Marcus shows up at your motel, if he approaches you on the street, if you even get a bad feeling, you call me. Do not hesitate. I took the card. It felt like a shield. And Isaiah, Andre added, his voice softening, watch your assets. If he is this deep, he is looking for quick cash anywhere he can find it. Jewelry, electronics, loose cash. I thought about the safe in my closet, the one I had emptied before I left. I thought about the silver set Eleanor had left to Kendra. I have secured the main accounts, I said, but he is still in the house. Get him out, Andre said. File an eviction. Get a restraining order. Use this folder as the evidence. But do not let him stay there another night, because when Sal comes calling, you do not want your property to be the collateral. I walked out of the precinct into the bright, harsh daylight of the city. The noise of the traffic seemed deafening. I felt a profound sense of grief. Not for Marcus. I grieved for the years I had wasted thinking I was building a legacy. I had built nothing. I had merely built a shelter for a liar. I walked to my car and sat in the driver's seat for a long time without starting the engine. My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a text from Kendra. Dad, please call me. It is an emergency. I need to talk to you about the baby. I stared at the screen. The baby. It was the ultimate trump card. The one thing that could make a grandfather open his wallet no matter what. But now, looking at the words through the lens of what Andre had just told me, I did not see a plea for help. I saw a strategy. I saw a desperate man whispering in my daughter's ear, telling her what to say to get the money he needed to save his own skin. I started the car. I was not going to call her back. Not yet. I was going to wait. I was going to let the pressure build. Because as Andre said, the truth only comes out when the lies have nowhere left to hide. I drove back to the Blue Horizon with the window down, letting the city noise wash over me. The revelation about the gambling debt sat heavy in my gut like a stone. I had spent 40 years building a reputation in this city. My name meant something. It meant integrity. It meant precision. It meant that if Isaiah Vance signed a document, you could take it to the bank. But Marcus was not just attacking my bank account anymore. He was attacking my name. The first warning came from Deacon Thomas. We had served on the usher board at Ebenezer Baptist for 20 years. Thomas was a man who did not gossip, but he believed in the sanctity of information. Isaiah, Thomas said when I picked up the phone, I hope I am not disturbing you, but I thought you should know what is being said in the barbershop. What is being said, Thomas? I asked, keeping my eyes on the road. Marcus was in here this morning. He was getting a shape-up and he was talking loud. He told the guys that you are not well. He used the word dementia, Isaiah. He said you are having episodes where you forget who people are and you get aggressive. He said that is why you left the house. He claimed they had to ask you to leave for the safety of the family. I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. It was a smart play. If I was mentally incompetent, then my financial decisions could be challenged. My revocation of the credit cards could be painted as the erratic actions of a senile old man, rather than the discipline of a fed-up father. He is lying, Thomas, I said calmly. My mind is as sharp as it ever was. I know that, Thomas said. I told him that I saw you last Sunday and you looked fine to me, but he is persuasive, Isaiah. He was talking about medical power of attorney. He was asking if anyone knew a lawyer who handles competency hearings. Power of attorney. The words chilled me. Marcus was not just trying to explain away the embarrassment of being cut off. He was laying the groundwork to take control of my assets legally. If he could prove I was incompetent, he could get guardianship. He could get access to the trust. He could pay off Sal and still have enough left over for a new Range Rover. Thank you for telling me, Thomas, I said. I will handle it. I hung up and felt a cold fury rising in my chest. It was one thing to steal my money. It was another to steal my mind. To tell the world that the intellect I had cultivated for 7 decades was rotting away. My phone rang again almost immediately. The screen lit up with a picture of Kendra from her wedding day, smiling and radiant. I stared at it. The text she had sent earlier about the baby flashed in my mind. I pulled into the motel parking lot and turned off the engine. I needed to be stationary for this. I needed to hear every inflection in her voice. I slid the green icon across the screen. Hello, Kendra. Dad. She sounded breathless, like she had been crying or running. Dad, I have been trying to reach you all morning. Why won't you answer me? I was busy, I said. What is the emergency? It is the baby, Dad, she sobbed. I went to the doctor this morning. Dr. Evans. He said there are complications. My blood pressure is too high. It is a high-risk pregnancy, Dad. He said I need to see a specialist immediately and get started on this new medication, but our insurance is pending because of the job switch Marcus is doing. I listened to the story. It had the frantic rhythm of a prepared speech. The details were just vague enough to be plausible but specific enough to be frightening. I'm sorry to hear that, Kendra, I said, my voice steady. Is the baby in immediate danger? Yes, she cried. If I do not start this treatment today, I could lose it. Dad, please. I know you are mad at Marcus. I know you are trying to teach us a lesson, but this is your grandchild. You cannot punish an innocent baby because of a fight about money. I felt a twist of pain in my heart. She was using my own values against me. She knew I would walk through fire for my family. She was counting on it. How much do you need? I asked. $5,000, she said quickly. Too quickly. The specialist requires a retainer up front, and the medication is expensive. $5,000. It was a round number. It was also just enough to cover a weekly payment to a loan shark named Sal, to keep him from breaking legs. All right, Kendra, I said. I will help. Oh, thank God. She exhaled, and I could hear the relief in her voice. Thank you, Dad. I knew you would not let us down. I will text you Marcus's PayPal info. You can send it instant transfer. No, I said. The silence on the other end was sudden and absolute. What? I said no to the transfer, I explained calmly. If this is a medical emergency, I do not want to involve a middleman. I know Dr. Evans. He has been your doctor since you were 16. I will call his office right now. I will give them my credit card number over the phone and pay the retainer directly. I will also pay the pharmacy for the medication. There was a pause, a long, heavy pause where I could practically hear the gears turning in her head. I could hear Marcus whispering in the background, a low, urgent hiss. You cannot do that, Dad, Kendra said, her voice sharpening. HIPAA laws. They cannot discuss my billing with you without my written consent. It will take too long to set up. We need the money now. I can have the consent form faxed to the motel office in 5 minutes, I countered. Or I can drive over there. I am only 20 minutes away. I will meet you at the doctor's office, Kendra. I will hand them a check myself. No, she shouted. You cannot come here. I mean, I am not there anymore. I am at home resting. Dad, why are you making this so difficult? Do you not trust me? I looked out the windshield at the peeling paint of the motel. I remembered the little girl who used to tell me the truth, even when she broke a vase. I remembered the teenager who admitted when she dented the fender. Where had she gone? It is not about trust, Kendra, I said softly. It is about precision. If the money is for the doctor gets paid. If the money is for something else, then we have a problem. Something else, she stammered. What else would it be for? Maybe for a bookie named Sal, I said. The line went dead silent. The breathing stopped. The background whispering stopped. I had dropped the bomb and now I waited for the explosion. You are crazy, she whispered finally, but the conviction was gone. Marcus was right. You are losing your mind. You are paranoid. Am I? I asked. Ask Marcus about Glacier Peaks Casino. Ask him about the $50,000 loan he tried to take out on my house 2 months ago with a forged signature. Ask him why he needs $5,000 today when he has 2 luxury SUVs in the driveway. Dad, stop it. She was crying again, but this time it sounded like fear, not manipulation. You are making things up. I am not the one making things up, Kendra, I said. I am the one reading the ledger. Now my offer stands. I will pay Dr. Evans directly. I will drive to the office right now. Just tell me where to go. She hung up. The click of the disconnected call felt like a gavel coming down. She had chosen. Faced with the choice between the truth and the lie, she had chosen to protect the lie. She had chosen to protect the man who was dragging her down rather than the father who was trying to pull her up. I sat there for a long time staring at the phone. They were desperate now. The dementia rumor was their shield and the pregnancy scam was their sword. Both had failed. Marcus was cornered. He had tried to bully me. He had tried to trick me. He had tried to smear my name. None of it had worked. The money was still in my account and the debt was still on his head. He would be angry. He would be reckless. And he would be looking for a target. I started the car engine again. I could not stay at the motel. It was too passive. I needed to be out in the open. I needed to be where witnesses could see me. I needed to show the city of Chicago that Isaiah Vance was standing tall, sane, and unafraid. I put the car in reverse. I was going to the bank. I had some documents to notarize and I wanted to make sure my face was seen by everyone on Main Street. If Marcus wanted a war, he was about to find out that he was fighting a general, not a foot soldier. First Republic Bank stood on the corner of Michigan Avenue, like a fortress of gray stone and polished brass. It was a building designed to project stability. I had worked inside those walls for 15 years and I knew that the air inside was always cool and smelled faintly of old paper and currency. I parked my Toyota in the lot and walked toward the revolving doors. I checked my reflection in the glass. My tie was straight. My suit was unwrinkled. I did not look like a man in the grip of dementia. I looked like a man about to conduct business. I spent 20 minutes inside with the vice president, ensuring that the freeze on my trust was absolute. We notarized 3 documents that required my physical presence. When I shook his hand and turned to leave, I felt a renewed sense of strength. The legal walls were up. The moat was dug. I pushed through the revolving doors back out into the bustling energy of the downtown sidewalk. The lunch rush was beginning. Office workers in shirt sleeves were hurrying toward sandwich shops and tourists were taking photos of the architecture. There he is. The voice cut through the street noise like a serrated knife. It was loud, theatrically loud. I stopped and turned. Marcus was standing near the ATM vestibule about 20 feet away. He was not alone. He was talking to a small group of people, including a security guard and a woman I recognized from the church choir. He pointed a shaking finger at me. Dad, wait right there. He rushed toward me, his face a mask of exaggerated concern. He was playing the role of the terrified son perfectly. He was sweating, though. Dark patches stained the underarms of his expensive dress shirt. I held my ground. I shifted my leather portfolio to my left hand, leaving my right hand free. Hello, Marcus, I said. Everyone just give us some space, Marcus shouted to the people nearby, waving his arms. My father is having an episode. He wandered off 3 days ago and we have been looking everywhere for him. The crowd slowed. People stopped chewing their sandwiches. Phones came out. The camera lenses stared at us like unblinking eyes. This was the stage he wanted. He wanted to humiliate me publicly, to validate his story about my mental decline. Dad, come on, Marcus said, reaching for my arm but stopping just short of touching me. You are confused. You do not know where you are. Kendra is crying her eyes out at home. The car is right here. Let me take you home so you can take your medication. I looked at the crowd. I saw pity in their eyes. They saw a well-dressed young man trying to help a senile old man. They saw the narrative Marcus had crafted. I stepped back, creating a precise distance between us. I did not raise my voice, but I pitched it low and hard so it carried over the traffic noise. I am not confused, Marcus. And I do not take any medication except for a daily vitamin. He is not making sense, Marcus told the security guard who had stepped closer. He thinks people are stealing from him. It is part of the paranoia. Dad, please, just get in the car. I looked directly at the security guard. I recognized him. Frank. He had worked the lobby for a decade. Frank, I said, do I look confused to you? Frank hesitated, looking from Marcus to me. Mr. Vance, you look fine to me. He is good at hiding it, Marcus snapped, his voice cracking with stress. That is the disease. 1 minute he is fine, the next he is canceling mortgages and accusing family members of crimes. Dad, the doctors are waiting. I opened my portfolio. I did not take out the papers, but I let Marcus see them. I saw his eyes widen as he recognized the yellow edge of the loan application. Let us talk about crimes, Marcus, I said. My voice was calm, cold, and relentless. Let us talk about why you are really here. You are not here to take me home. You are here because the ATM declined your withdrawal again. Stop it, Marcus hissed, stepping into my personal space. Do not do this here. Let us talk about the Glacier Peaks Casino. I continued, raising my voice just enough to reach the back of the gathering crowd. Let us talk about the $25,000 you owe to a bookie named Sal. The crowd murmured. The pity in their eyes was replaced by curiosity. The phone cameras held steady. You are crazy, Marcus shouted. See, he is hallucinating. Let us talk about February 12th, I said, reciting the date from memory. The day you walked into this very bank and sat in Darius Cole's office. The day you presented a loan application for $50,000 against my home. The day you forged my signature because you were terrified of what Sal would do to you if you did not pay him. Liar, Marcus screamed. His face turned a dark, violent shade of purple. He looked around at the crowd, realizing the tide had turned. He saw judgment now, not sympathy. I have the application right here, Marcus, I said, tapping the portfolio. I have the forgery affidavit, and I have the police report filed by Detective Hill this morning. Shut up, Marcus roared. He lunged. It happened in slow motion. The desperation finally broke through his facade. He was not a grieving son anymore. He was a frightened animal lashing out. He reached for me, his hands clawing for the portfolio, trying to destroy the evidence that was ruining his life. I did not move. I did not flinch. Frank, the security guard, moved faster than a man of his size should have been able to. He stepped between us, catching Marcus by the shoulder. Hey, back off, Frank barked. Get off me, Marcus yelled, struggling against the grip. He is lying. He is trying to ruin me. Give me those papers, old man. You are ruining yourself, I said, standing tall amidst the chaos. I paid your bills for 5 years, Marcus. I bought your cars. I fixed your house. And you repaid me by trying to steal the equity from under my feet. Marcus threw an elbow, knocking Frank back a step. He stumbled toward me, his fist raised, his eyes full of hate. I will kill you, he screamed. The threat hung in the air, shocking and absolute. Before he could swing, 2 police officers who had been working a detail at the construction site next door tackled him. They took him to the pavement with a heavy thud. Get off me, Marcus screamed, his face pressed against the concrete. I watched from above. I smoothed my tie. I looked at the man who had sat in my recliner and told me to obey his rules. He looked very small down there. Check his pockets, officers, I said clearly. You will likely find a notice from a collection agency. Or maybe a receipt from the casino. I am his son-in-law, Marcus sobbed, the fight draining out of him as the handcuffs clicked into place. He is sick. You have to believe me. The crowd was silent now. They had seen the truth. They had seen the violence in his eyes and the calm in mine. They knew who the dangerous one was. I turned to Frank, who was rubbing his chest. Thank you, Frank, I said. I apologize for the disturbance. Not your fault, Mr. Vance, Frank said, breathless. He has got a hell of a temper. I looked down at Marcus one last time as the officers hauled him to his feet. He would not look at me. He stared at the ground, shame finally finding him. I walked back to my car. My hands were trembling slightly now that the adrenaline was fading, but my head was high. I placed the portfolio on the passenger seat. I had exposed the rot. I had torn down the facade. The city knew the truth now. Kendra would know the truth soon. The war was not over, but the first major battle had been won. I started the engine and drove away, leaving my son-in-law in the back of a squad car surrounded by the ruins of his own arrogance. The adrenaline from the confrontation at the bank faded slowly, leaving behind a cold and precise clarity. I did not drive back to the motel to rest. Momentum is a critical force in both finance and justice, and I knew that if I stopped now, the doubt might creep back in. I had to finish what I had started. I drove straight to the Cook County Courthouse. The gray stone building loomed over the plaza, a silent testament to the rule of law. I walked through the metal detectors with my portfolio tucked under my arm. The same portfolio Marcus had tried to rip from my hands less than an hour ago. The clerk at the filing window was a woman named Brenda who had processed paperwork for me back when I was handling estate settlements. She looked at the police report number I provided. She looked at the sworn affidavit from Frank, the security guard detailing the threat against my life. "He said he would kill you," Brenda asked, looking up over her reading glasses. Her voice was hushed. "In front of 20 witnesses," I confirmed. "And 2 police officers." She stamped the papers with a heavy, decisive thud. The sound echoed in the high-ceilinged room like a gunshot. Judge Patterson signed the temporary restraining order 20 minutes later. It was effective immediately. Marcus King was now legally prohibited from coming within 500 feet of me or my property. If he stepped onto the driveway of the brownstone, he would be arrested again. I did not stop there. I walked down the hall to the civil division and filed the eviction notice. 30 days. That was the legal requirement. They had 30 days to vacate the premises. It was more time than they deserved, but I was a man who followed the rules even when dealing with people who broke them. By the time I walked back to my car, the sun was beginning to dip lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the city. My phone rang. It was a number I recognized immediately. Mountain View Luxury Imports. It was Mike Ross, the owner of the dealership where Marcus worked. Mike was a decent man, a self-made success who valued reputation above all else. I had bought my Toyota from him 10 years ago and we had stayed in touch. "Isaiah," Mike's voice was grave. "I just got a call from one of my sales guys. He was at the bank downtown on his lunch break. He said he saw Marcus in handcuffs. He said there was a fight." I sat in the driver's seat and closed the door, shutting out the street noise. I owed Mike the truth. He had hired Marcus as a favor to me 3 years ago. "It is true, Mike," I said. "Marcus attacked me. He threatened my life because I exposed his financial fraud." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. I could hear the faint background noise of the dealership showroom, the paging system, and the murmur of customers. "Fraud?" Mike asked finally. "He forged my signature on a loan application, Mike. He is in deep with gambling debts. The police have the evidence." I heard Mike exhale a long, heavy breath. "I am sorry, Isaiah. I really am. You know I liked the kid. He had charisma. But I cannot have this. We handle high-net-worth clients. I cannot have a felon on the floor. I cannot have the police coming here looking for him." "I understand," I said. "I have to let him go, Isaiah. Effective immediately. You have to do what is right for your business, Mike." I hung up the phone. The second pillar of Marcus's life had just crumbled. First his freedom, then his job. The facade of the successful car salesman was gone. Now he was just an unemployed man with a criminal record and a mountain of debt. I drove back toward the brownstone. I did not intend to go inside. The restraining order prohibited Marcus from approaching me, but it did not prohibit me from parking across the street to ensure the sheriff's deputies did their job. When I arrived, the scene was already chaotic. A tow truck was backed into the driveway. Its amber lights flashed rhythmically, reflecting off the brick face of the house I had worked so hard to buy. It was the repossession team. The bank had moved fast on the canceled auto payments. 2 large men in jumpsuits were hooking chains to the front axle of the white Range Rover. I watched from my car, parked a safe distance away. The front door of the house flew open. Kendra ran out. She was wearing a bathrobe and her hair was wild. She screamed at the men, waving her arms. I could not hear her words through the glass, but I could see her desperation. She grabbed the arm of the driver. He shook her off gently but firmly and pointed to his clipboard. He showed her the repossession order. The car did not belong to them. It never had. It belonged to the bank, and the bank wanted its asset back. Kendra collapsed onto the front steps. She put her face in her hands. The tow truck engine roared, and the Range Rover, the symbol of Marcus's fake success, was lifted into the air. It looked ridiculous, dangling there, stripped of its dignity. A second truck pulled up for the Lexus. The neighbors were watching. Mrs. Gable from next door was peering through her curtains. The man walking his dog across the street had stopped to stare. The illusion of the perfect, successful young couple was being dismantled, piece by piece in broad daylight. A sheriff's cruiser pulled up to the curb. 2 deputies got out. They walked past Kendra, who was still sobbing on the steps, and taped a bright orange piece of paper to the front door. The eviction notice. Then they handed a second set of papers to Kendra. The restraining order. I watched her read it. I saw her shoulders slump. She looked at the empty spot in the driveway where the cars used to be. She looked at the orange notice on the door, and then she looked out at the street. For a moment our eyes met across the distance. I did not wave. I did not smile. I just sat there bearing witness to the consequences of their choices. She stood up slowly and walked back inside, closing the heavy oak door. The house looked different now. It no longer looked like a home. It looked like a building that was waiting for new owners. I put the car in gear and drove away. My heart felt heavy, but it was a clean heaviness. The surgery was complete. The tumor had been cut out. Now the healing could begin, but healing is often more painful than the injury itself. I returned to the blue horizon as the sun finally set. The neon sign buzzed to life, casting its flickering blue light over the parking lot. I walked into my room and locked the door. My phone sat on the table. It was silent. No more threatening texts, no more manipulative calls. The silence was absolute. They had no cards left to play. I opened my laptop and logged into my bank account one last time for the day. The balance was steady. The bleeding had stopped. I was solvent. I was safe. And for the first time in 5 years I was free. But freedom has a price. I sat on the edge of the bed and looked at the photo of Eleanor I had packed in my suitcase. "I did it, Elle," I whispered to the empty room. I stopped them. I hoped she would be proud. I hoped she understood that sometimes love looks like a tow truck and a restraining order. Sometimes love looks like saying no. Wednesday morning was overcast, the clouds hanging low and heavy over the city, matching the mood of the meeting I was about to host. I had chosen a small coffee shop called the Daily Grind on the edge of the downtown district. It was quiet and neutral ground. It was not one of the fancy cafes Kendra frequented with her social circles, nor was it the diner where I met my old friends. It was a place for strangers to meet and conduct business, and that was exactly what this was. I arrived 20 minutes early, securing the booth in the far back corner away from the door and the espresso machine. I ordered a black coffee and placed the black leather portfolio on the table. Inside was the dossier Andre and I had compiled, the police report, the affidavit, the bank records, the gambling timeline. It was the autopsy of a marriage written in ink and numbers. Kendra arrived 5 minutes late. When the bell above the door chimed, I almost did not recognize her. The polished, glamorous woman who had stood in my living room demanding I obey her husband was gone. In her place was a ghost. She wore a gray, oversized sweatshirt and no makeup. Her hair, usually blown out to perfection, was pulled back in a messy knot. Her eyes were swollen and rimmed with red. She spotted me and hesitated. For a moment I thought she might turn around and walk out, but she took a deep breath and made her way to the booth. She slid into the seat opposite me, shrinking into the vinyl upholstery as if she wanted to disappear. "Hello, Kendra," I said, my voice even. "Dad," she breathed the word like a plea. She looked at the coffee cup in front of me, then at her hands, which were twisting a paper napkin into shreds. "I do not know what to say." "You do not have to say anything yet," I said. "You just need to listen and you need to read." I opened the portfolio and slid the first document across the scratched wooden table. It was the surveillance log from the casino provided by Andre's contact in Vice. "What is this?" she asked, her voice trembling. "It is a record of where your husband has been spending his Tuesday and Thursday nights for the last 8 months, I said. "He told you he was working late at the dealership. He told you he was building his client list. He was actually at the Glacier Peaks Casino sitting at the high-stakes poker tables." She stared at the paper. Her eyes scanned the dates and times. The amounts lost were highlighted in yellow marker. $500 here, $2,000 there. "He has a problem, Kendra," I said gently. "He is an addict." "No." She shook her head, tears spilling onto her cheeks. "He told me he made a few bad investments. He said the market turned against him. He swore it was just bad luck." I slid the second document across, the forged loan application. "This is not bad luck," I said. "This is a felony. He tried to mortgage my home, the home you grew up in. He forged my signature because he owes $25,000 to people who do not use collection agencies. He put your safety at risk to cover his own mistakes." Kendra put her hand over her mouth. She read the document. She saw the date. She saw the fake signature. The realization hit her like a physical blow. She had been sleeping next to a man who was willing to steal her inheritance and leave her father homeless to save himself. "He lied to me," she whispered. "He lied about everything." "He did," I confirmed. "And you let him. You were so desperate to live the fairy tale life, Kendra, that you ignored the reality. You let him disrespect me. You let him spend my money. You stood by and watched him kick me out of my own house because you liked the lifestyle he pretended to provide." "Dad, I'm so sorry." She reached across the table trying to take my hand. "I was scared. He said if we did not get the money we would lose everything. I did not know about the forgery, I swear." I pulled my hand back. I believed her about the forgery. Kendra was weak, but she was not a criminal. However, ignorance was no longer an excuse. "I am not looking for an apology, Kendra," I said. "I am looking for a decision." "What decision?" She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, leaving a streak of mascara on her cheek. "Marcus is finished," I said. "He has no job. He has a criminal record now. He has debts he cannot pay. He is going to leave town, Kendra. Men like him always run when the walls close in. He will try to go somewhere new, somewhere he can start the con all over again." She nodded slowly, sniffing. "He already packed a bag. He said he has a cousin in Atlanta. He wants me to go with him." I leaned forward. This was the moment, the hinge upon which the rest of her life would turn. "You have a choice to make," I said. "You can go with him. You can spend the rest of your life running from debts you did not create, looking over your shoulder, wondering when the lies will catch up to you. You can choose loyalty to a criminal, or," I paused, letting the weight of the words settle, "or you can stay here. You can divorce him. You can testify to the truth of what he did. You can stand on your own 2 feet and rebuild your life with integrity." "I want to stay," she said immediately. "I want to stay here with you, Dad. I want to come home. I made a mistake. I will divorce him. I will do whatever you say. Can I just come back to the brownstone? We can fix this." I sat back in the booth. This was the hardest part, the part that went against every instinct I had as a father. I wanted to say yes. I wanted to bring her home and fix her wounds and pay her legal bills. But I knew that if I did that, I would just be replacing Marcus as her crutch. She would not learn to walk if I carried her. "No, Kendra," I said. She froze. "What do you mean, no?" "I mean, you cannot come back to the brownstone," I said. "But you said if I left him," she stammered. "I said you could rebuild your life," I corrected. "I did not say I would build it for you. And there is something else you need to know. The house is gone." "Gone?" She looked at me with wide, panicked eyes. "Did you sell it?" "I donated it," I said. "I signed the papers yesterday morning. The deed has been transferred to the Chicago Veterans Housing Initiative. They take large family homes and convert them into transitional apartments for veterans returning from deployment. Men and women who understand the value of honor and sacrifice." Kendra's mouth fell open. "You gave away the house. My inheritance." "It was never your inheritance, Kendra," I said, my voice hard. "It was my home. And for the last 5 years it was a hotel where you lived for free while you treated the owner like a servant. I decided that if I was going to provide housing, it should be to people who appreciate it." "But where will I live?" she cried. "I have no money, Dad. The accounts are empty." "You have a college degree that I paid for," I said. "You have a resume. You are smart, Kendra, when you are not letting someone else do your thinking for you. You will find a job. You will rent a small apartment. You will take the bus until you can afford a car. You will struggle." I watched the fear wash over her face, the terrifying prospect of actual independence. "Why are you doing this?" she whispered. "Do you hate me?" "I love you," I said. "I love you enough to stop crippling you. I love you enough to let you feel the cold so you learn how to build your own fire." I pulled a small notepad from my pocket. I tore off a sheet of paper and slid it across the table next to the evidence of her husband's crimes. "This is the address of a women's shelter on the west side," I said. "They have counseling services. They have job placement programs. I have already made a donation in your name. They have a bed waiting for you if you want it." She looked at the address. It was a humble place, a place for people who had hit rock bottom. "You want me to go to a shelter?" she asked incredulously. "I want you to start over," I said. I stood up. I placed a $20 bill on the table to cover the coffee. "There is one more thing, Kendra," I said, looking down at her. "If you decide to stay, if you decide to leave Marcus and do the work, I want you at Ebenezer Baptist on Sunday. I want you to stand up during the testimony service. I want you to tell the congregation the truth, not the version where you are a victim, but the version where you were an accomplice to the lie." "And if I do?" she asked, looking up at me like a lost child. "Then we can have coffee again next week," I said, "and we can start getting to know each other, not as father and dependent, but as adults." I turned and walked out of the coffee shop. I did not look back to see if she took the paper with the shelter's address. I did not look back to see if she was crying. I walked out into the gray morning air, feeling the immense weight of the love that requires discipline. I had stripped her of everything false. Now I had to wait and see if she had anything real left underneath. Sunday morning at Ebenezer Baptist Church was always a vibrant affair filled with the sound of the Hammond organ and the collective voice of the choir rising to the rafters. I sat in my usual pew near the back, the same spot I had occupied for 20 years. The wood felt familiar against my back, but everything else in my life had changed. I checked my watch. It was 10:15. The testimony portion of the service was about to begin. My hands were resting on my knees, calm and still, but my heart was beating with a quiet, desperate hope. I had given Kendra an ultimatum and a map to redemption, but I could not walk the path for her. Reverend Johnson stepped to the pulpit and adjusted the microphone. He looked out over the congregation, his eyes sweeping across the faces he knew so well. "Does anyone have a word to share this morning?" he asked, his voice booming and warm. For a long, agonizing moment there was silence. I stared at the double doors at the back of the sanctuary. They remained closed. I felt a heavy stone of disappointment begin to settle in my stomach. She was not coming. She had chosen to run with Marcus. She had chosen the easy road of avoidance. I began to bow my head to pray for her safety when the doors creaked open. A hush fell over the back rows and rippled forward. Kendra walked in. She was not wearing the designer heels or the silk dresses she used to flaunt. She was wearing a simple navy dress that looked old-fashioned and modest. Her hair was pulled back plainly. She looked stripped down. She looked real. She walked down the center aisle. Her steps were shaky, but she did not stop. She walked past the whispering deacons and the curious choir members. She walked past me without making eye contact, though I saw her chin tremble. She walked straight to the pulpit. Reverend Johnson saw the look on her face and stepped aside, nodding gently. He lowered the microphone stand for her. Kendra gripped the podium with both hands. Her knuckles were white. She looked out at the sea of faces, the people who had known her since she was a baby in the church nursery. "My name is Kendra King," she said, and her voice cracked. She cleared her throat and started again. "My name is Kendra, and I am here to confess." The silence in the church was absolute. Even the children stopped fidgeting. "For the past 5 years I have been living a lie," she continued, tears beginning to stream down her face. "I stood by while my husband Marcus spread rumors about my father, Isaiah Vance. We told you he was losing his mind. We told you he was sick. We told you he was confused." She took a deep breath. "He is not sick. He is the most sane man I know. The truth is that my husband and I were stealing from him. We lived in his house for free. We drove cars he paid for. And when he finally asked for respect, we tried to destroy his reputation to cover up our own greed." A gasp went through the room. Mrs. Gable in the front row put a hand to her chest. "Marcus is gone," Kendra said. "He left town yesterday to escape his gambling debts. He wanted me to go with him. He wanted me to keep running. But my father gave me a choice. He told me I could run or I could stand here and tell you the truth." She looked directly at me then. Her eyes were swimming with tears, but they were steady. "I am sorry, Dad," she whispered into the microphone. "I am sorry for every dollar I wasted. I am sorry for every lie I told. I am sorry I chose a thief over you. I am starting over today. I have nothing left, but I have the truth, and I hope that is enough to start earning your forgiveness." She stepped back from the podium. For a second, no one moved. Then slowly the sound of clapping began. It started in the back row with Deacon Thomas, and it spread. It was not the applause of performance, but the applause of support. The sound of a community welcoming a lost sheep back into the fold. Kendra walked down the steps and I met her in the aisle. I did not say a word. I simply opened my arms and she collapsed into my chest, sobbing with the force of a dam breaking. I held her tight, feeling the shaking of her shoulders, and for the first time in years I felt like a father who was actually protecting his child rather than just paying her bills. 3 months later the air was crisp with the scent of pine needles and damp earth. I sat on the wooden dock of the small cabin I had purchased on the edge of Lake Geneva. It was not a mansion. It was a simple A-frame with 2 bedrooms and a wood stove. It cost a fraction of what the brownstone was worth, but it was mine. The morning mist was rising off the water, revealing the smooth glass surface of the lake. I cast my fishing line out, watching the bobber settle with a soft plop. The silence here was different than the silence in the motel. It was not empty. It was full. It was the piece of a ledger that had finally been balanced. I had no mortgage here. No car notes for vehicles I did not drive. No credit card statements filled with charges for designer handbags. My pension check arrived on the 1st of the month, and it stayed in my account until I decided to spend it. I heard the crunch of tires on the gravel driveway behind the cabin. I did not turn around immediately. I reeled in my line, slowly enjoying the rhythm of the handle. "Dad," a voice called out. I set the rod in the holder and stood up. Kendra was walking down the path toward the water. She looked healthy. She had cut her hair shorter, and she was wearing jeans and a flannel shirt. She looked like she belonged in the world of work, not the world of illusion. She was carrying 2 coffees from the diner in town. "I brought the dark roast," she said, handing me a cup. "Black, just how you like it." "Thank you," I said, taking the cup. The warmth seeped into my hands. She sat down on the bench next to me. She took a sip of her own coffee and looked out at the lake. "I got my first paycheck yesterday," she said. "It is not much. The shelter pays the administrative assistants hourly, but I paid my rent for the studio apartment, and I bought my own groceries." "That is good, Kendra," I said. "That is very good." She reached into her pocket and pulled out a crumpled envelope. She handed it to me. "What is this?" I asked. "It is $50, she said. "I know I owe you thousands, Dad. I know I can never pay back what Marcus stole or what you spent on my tuition, but I want to start paying you back for the legal fees for the divorce. It is $50 a month. It is all I can afford right now, but it is real money." I looked at the envelope. $50. It was a microscopic amount compared to the fortune that had been wasted. But as I held it, I realized it was the most valuable payment I had ever received. It was money earned with labor, not entitlement. It was money given with honor, not extracted with guilt. I put the envelope in my shirt pocket, close to my heart. "Thank you, Kendra," I said. "I accept it." We sat there for a long time, watching the sun climb higher in the sky, burning off the last of the mist. We did not talk much. We did not need to. The silence between us was no longer filled with secrets and resentments. It was just 2 adults sitting by the water, enjoying the morning. Marcus was gone somewhere in Atlanta, running from his shadow. The brownstone was full of veterans rebuilding their lives, and I was here fishing in the quiet of my own dignity. I looked at my daughter. She was staring at the water, her face calm and determined. She had a long road ahead of her. She had credit to repair and a heart to heal. But she was walking that road on her own 2 feet. I took a sip of my coffee. It tasted bitter and strong and perfect. "You want to learn how to cast?" I asked, nodding at the spare rod leaning against the railing. She smiled, and it was a real smile, one that reached her eyes. "Yeah, Dad," she said, standing up. "I think I would like that." I showed her how to hold the rod, how to flick her wrist, how to let the line fly. She tangled it the first time, and we laughed. She got it right the second time. As I watched her line arc gracefully over the water, I realized that this was the legacy I was meant to leave. Not a house, not a trust fund, but the ability to stand in the boat and cast your own line. Justice had been served. The debts had been canceled. And finally we were both free. True love is not about shielding those we care about from every storm. Often, it is about letting them feel the rain so they learn to build their own shelter. We frequently mistake financial support for affection, but when we give without boundaries, we are not raising capable adults, we are merely funding their eternal adolescence. Isaiah's journey teaches us that respect cannot be bought, and loyalty cannot be bribed. There comes a moment in every parent's life when the most loving action is to close the checkbook and open the door to reality. Dignity is not what others give you. It is what you preserve when you finally refuse to accept anything less. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Would you have forgiven Kendra as quickly as Isaiah did? Let us know. To listen to the next story, click the video on your screen now. Thank you for watching.